You were talking about like you got into some confrontations with some DJs or artists in New York and Miami, right? Were these like known people, like really known people?
Yeah, one of them was known. I was in a conference where I was supposed to be professional. Everybody's there just to, listen to you, and you do interviews. And MTV Tres was there. There was a whole bunch of people, and um, there was a guy. I was a part of a group called Black Royal, which was a record label, independent record label. The main guy, his name was Screw. He had Akon in that label. He had Joell Ortiz at the time, and he's my wife's uncle. So that's how I met my wife. So at the time, he was the role manager for them too, and things like that. But he ended up getting killed. He ended up getting killed one day that he was with Capone from Capone Noriega. He was in a comic view that he hosted in New Jersey, and he ended up getting killed. So I'm in this conference, and this DJ who's known from New York.
You can't say his name?
I don't want to say his name because of the life that I live now.
I got you. Yeah.
But people know because I mentioned it on songs. But he said something negative about Screw. Something really negative, like disrespectful. It was musical, but to me it was disrespectful because he was dead. And he was the type of dude that I knew that guy would have never said that into his face. So I flipped out, and I beat him up right in front of everybody, bro. Never got invited again to any conference, anything. Before that, it was like I was the man. Before that, I was the hype. Like I was the unsigned hype. I would show up to these conferences and Machete Music, everybody like Temperamento, Temperamento. But after this day, it was almost like they were like, nah, this kid is too street. And the crazy thing is, I wasn't. I was trying to do the music, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, yo, you disrespected somebody, you disrespected my brother, and he's not here to defend himself no more. So I did what I felt I had to do at the time.
Well, at that time, it was there was a standard more than there is now, where like you don't speak ill of the dead. Like now in hip hop, you like, it's like I'm pissing on my ops grave and yada yada, like all that stuff, right? But back then, I could see why you took it so much more serious, because it's like we went by a code of more of like, you don't disrespect those that have passed because they're not here to defend themselves, So the fact that he did that,
exactly, and Screw was the type of dude that we will go, bro. He will go so deep into the clubs that he will bring us to the clubs. Like I remember we went to a Akon show in where JC was the main guy, and then Akon was opening. And this was after Locked Up came out, because that, how that happened with Akon, where like the song came out, and at the beginning, like he would show up and like 20 people show up to his shows, but then it just blew up. So I remember we went to a concert one time, and Screw, we're in line to go to the club, and it's like 100 of us, and he was always the last guy in line. Like he would make sure we all get in the club, right? But he had like this leadership thing, and again, the whole father figure type of thing, he had that in him. I saw that in him. So he would make sure we all go in. And I remember Akon would perform, and there was a big beef because as soon as he finished performing, we all left the club, and it made JC look bad. So that became a problem. Like, they were like, what are you doing? Like the club looks empty.
Right.
So I remember those things with him. So I had so much respect for him. He was a dude he was involved in the streets, but he's the reason Akon got out of the streets. If you look at Akon's like the VH1 behind the music, he mentions him, and he even goes to where he got killed, and you see Akon crying in that interview because he's the guy that took him out the streets. He's the one that saw him like stealing a car, and he's like, bro, come on, man. And he got him out the streets. So I had a real respect to him, and that's what happened. I ended up flipping out, and I took on this. I think after that, it was almost like Tupac in the movies, right? Like he took on a character, and that's who he was all the time. After that, I kind of got into character where I knew I was being blackballed. I knew everybody hated me. So I became more negative, and I kind of I turned backwards. I went into the music, and now I started going back to the streets and trying to bring the streets into the music. And he ended up getting me in trouble, ended up getting me into prison time.
It's crazy because in hip hop, it's like we'll advertise the streets, right? Like that's we're selling the street life pretty much, right? But when you start to bring that street life into these boardrooms and everything like that, they don't want that. They that's when you start to get blackballed, like you said, you know. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people has had to learn a hard lesson from. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like keeping it too real. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I found that out real quick. It's like as soon as I had the meetings with them and they're telling me like, oh, this is what we do here. Like, we'll have people writing for you. Like, you got to write more about the girls and this and that. And you in your mind, you're like, man, they're going to love that I'm this real and I'm talking about the streets. But as soon as you find out that it's business, you know, and they don't see a business, you know, for them, it was different back then because they didn't want you to know the business, right? They wanted you to submit to their agenda, you know, to just be a yes man and like, I'll do whatever it takes. So they didn't see that in me because I didn't care about that. So
Right.
yeah, I was blackballed really quick.